What's going on, fellow makers? I'm Kurt and this is Simple Shop Creations. And in today's video, I'm going to go through the steps I used to create this end table from pallet wood. Also below in the descriptions are chapters that will lead you to the important parts that describe the measurements used to create this table. So with that, let's get the maker video rolling. Now, in step one, we're going to cut the legs. And the legs are going to be 19 inches long by 1 3/4 inches wide and by 1 3/4 inches high. So basically a square. And I'm not going to first cut these down into 19 inches because we're going to need the total length for other parts of the build. So here I'm just going to set my fence to 1 3/4 inch. All right, so next here, we're going to cut these 19 inches in length, and I already set up my 3/4 inch block here. I'm already set up to 19 3/4 inches. So now I'm just going to trim each one of these one ends flattened, and we'll butt them up against here and cut them at 19 inches. All right, so now we have our legs cut. The next step here is we're going to cut the apron. We're going to need 4 aprons. The aprons are going to go between the legs, and aprons will be 12 3/4 long, 3 inches wide, and 1 inch thick. All right, so I have my aprons cut. Again, they're 12 3/4 by 3 inches by 1 inch thick. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a taper cut on the legs. We're going to make two taper cuts, cut it once and just turn it over 90 degrees and cut it the other way here. So the dimensions for the taper are going to be, you measure down from the top to 3.5 inches, and then you measure in from the bottom here 1 1/4 inch, and that gives you your taper. As you see here, I'm all set up, ready to cut it. So I'm just going to cut it once, turn it 90 degrees, cut it again. But before you start doing all that, look through your boards and figure out, well, what do I want to keep and what do I want to get rid of? Obviously, I'm going to get rid of this mark here, and then I'm going to go through the rest of them and see what side I want to keep and all that. So once your taper jig is set up, all you got to do is just cut, flip, cut, flip, cut, flip, cut, flip, and then you're done. Okay, so now we got everything tapered here, and the next steps now we're going to attach the aprons to the legs. But just a quick reminder, keep these if you have a planer sled or joiner sled for your planer. I'll put these somewhere because you always can use these little shims to shim the board that you're trying to run through the planer to flatten or joint on a face. So I'm going to put these aside, like right there for now. And then we're going to continue on mounting, installing these aprons to the legs. So real quick here, let's go through this. So you're going to pick what side you want to have your taper. I usually have my 2 tapers inside, always facing inside, and then you'll have an exterior taper facing outside. These are going to be flush mount to the top, and you want to recess them in 3/8 of an inch. So if you have a piece of wood that's 3/8 of an inch, you're going to want to put that down first and then recess it in 3/8 of an inch. How am I going to attach these? There's a couple ways you can attach these. One, you can use a domino. Don't own one. Number 2, you can use a biscuit. 2 biscuits. You can use a biscuit joiner or whatever the hell you call them. I don't own one. So you can also use dowels. I do have some dowel jigs, but I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use a my Kreg jig, and I'm going to put 2 holes and then just go ahead and attach them. So let's get on, moving on to the Kreg jig. So I have my Kreg jig all set up. Since this is 1 inch thick, I raised this to the mark where it says 1 inch. So now I'm all set up for 1 inch thickness. If you look, you have an A hole, B hole, A hole, A hole, B hole, and C hole. What I did was I lined my board here pretty much flush to here, and then I'm going to drill 1 hole in the C and 1 hole in the A. And I'm going to do that for all 4 of my aprons. So let's go on, let's get on to that. After I attach this. Well, there you have it. All the holes drilled. Just make sure you pick the side that you want to be seen. That has the least amount of defects. Maybe I should have flipped it, but don't care. It's pallet wood. It's not going to be gorgeous. It's going to be functional. That's what it's going to be, functional. So next step is we're going to do a glue up, and let's go to that process right now. Now it's time for the glue up. So what I did here, I built myself a little small jig so I can move my legs flush, and then this should fit in here fine, and then we can screw them in without too much movement. I'm going to use 1.5 inch screws from Kreg, and I'm also going to glue the ends. Notice here, I want this apron to be recessed in a little bit. So these are approximately 3/8 inch thick coasters, I guess. So that's what I'm going to use here, and that's going to give me a nice recess of approximately 3/8 inch of an inch. So the taper is, let me show you how this taper is. So I have these 2 tapers are facing in, and then these 2 tapers are facing up. So that's the way I'm going to do. I'm going to glue 2 of them this way here, and then we'll wrap them all the way around. So let's first start by removing this and getting this here. And we're going to put some glue and glue. Now notice I put the screws in ahead of time because I hate fumbling with them. It's much easier to put the screws in and then start gluing and then ram all the screws in. So let's find a glue bottle. Well, that one's full. Oh, we don't want to use a full bottle. We want to use this one because it isn't full. One done. That looks pretty good. Feels good. It's flush. You can see here a nice little indentation there. We'll wrap some of this glue away, and we push away. Grab the next 2. We're done with the base, and now you can take this base here. You can sand it down, paint it, stain it, whatever you want to do with it, because the top it's a separate piece, and we're just going to go ahead and glue the top to the base once we get the top done. And to let you know the size of the top will be, or the tabletop will be approximately 18 inches by 18 inches, so an 18-inch square, and approximately 1 inch thick. So that's going to be next. That's what's coming up next, is going to be building the top for this base here. Well, since we got the base done, now we're going to move on to the table. And here you see a whole bunch of pallet scrap wood and the cutoffs from the building the base. So I'm going to use the scrap wood here to build the tabletop, and the tabletop will be initially 16-inch square with a 1-inch border all the way around, which will make it to an 18-inch square tabletop. Now, off camera, I'm going to go ahead and rip these down to about 1 3/4 to 1.5 inches to 1 3/4, and then glue everything up, and then flatten it down and all that. So here I trimmed down my boards, well, thick-wise, try to get them all the same height to begin with before I run them through the planer here. As you can see, I have two sets of glue up I'm going to do here. This one's a little over 8 inches. This one here is close to 9 inches. I don't have a planer that's can take a 16-inch board, so I broken up them basically in half. So I'm going to do 2 glue ups here, and then I'm going to put this on my planer sled, and then run it through the planer to get these all the same height. And once I know the height of the tabletop here, I can cut these down to the proper height, and then wrap it and then put it on the base. So I'm going to do the glue up off camera, and then we'll come back and we'll do some planer action. Okay, I got my planer sled all set up. For this one here, I'm going to run this through here. As you notice, I didn't cut anything because of snipe. We're just going to run this through, get this side nice and even, and then I'm going to pop it off, and I'm going to do the same thing to this one down here, get everything nice and even, and then we'll start flipping it over and get it down to the final size. All right. So here we have the finished, the semi-finished product here of the tabletop here. So now the next step here is just for me to glue these two together. I have 2 cauls here that I'm going to put on top to keep this flat. And then once this is all glued up and ready for the final prep, I'm going to fill all these holes in with either sawdust or just plain old wood putty, and then we'll give it a once over sand, 80, 150, 220, and then we should be good to go. So let me get this all glued up off camera. All right, so here I'm out of the glue up stage, took it out of the clamps and all that, and now I'm getting ready to make this a 16-inch square. Before you go ahead and cut this down, just check to make sure the side that's going to go up to the next to the rip fence is actually flat. If you got a good table saw, you can just do it this way, and you can see, in my case, it's flat. So now the next step here is just to set your rip fence here to 16 inches, and I'm just going to run it through. All right, so next I'm going to go take my board here and run it through my drum sander, which is actually 16 inches, so this should fit in there fine. I have 80 grit paper in here, and I'm going to do both sides with 80 grit. So let's let it rip. So we have our tabletop sanded down to 80 grit, 16 by 16. Next is I'm gonna cut the border, and these are going to be used to glue the tabletop to the base. And these are basically, as I stated before, 3/4 inch square by 3 inches, and you're going to need 8 of those. We'll find some scrap wood and cut it up. So here, this is going to be the border. I'm going to use this pallet pine, and first thing to do here is I'm going to rip these to 1 inch thick, and then I will be taking, for the width, I'm just going to use this to just butt up to my blade, and that'll give me my approximate width, and then we'll be good to go. So let's go on to ripping this stuff down so we can create the border. So I have my boards all trimmed down 1 inch thick, and well, 1 inch wide, and as thick as the same thickness as the board here. So what I have here is the board is upside down. In other words, this is the bottom, and the top's facing the cast iron top with the table saw. So this is the way I'm going to work, is just in case you have your boards here a little proud of the surface, it'll be sticking down on the bottom longer, and your top should be flush. So the first step is I'm going to go around and cut 45 degrees. I'm just going to put this one over a little bit, cut a 45 mark here, cut another 45, and then bring this one here, cut a 45, line it up, cut a 45, same thing here, cut a 45 first, line it up, cut another 45, and wrap all the way around. So when I come back, you should see all my parts cut, and we'll see how nice it fits. I cut my miters off camera because my miter saw is on the other side of the garage, and it's a real pain in the butt to get to. So I didn't want to waste time setting up the camera and stuff. So here I have my miters cut. The next step is I'm going to glue the boards to the sides. I'm going to use brad nails here. These are 1 1/4 inch to lock it in. And then once I got everything all tacked in and glued up, I'll put some clamps around, and that should be done with the top. Now I'm working with the bottom up, so hopefully when I flip it over after it's all done and dry, the top will literally be flush or need very little sanding to get it flush. We're on the last piece here. I'm just going to do a quick glue in the middle. No, I'm not going to spread it. I'm just going to put it in there and just jiggle it around a little bit. And then now we're going to put in our brad nails. There you have it. Just got to fill up some of these crack lines, and we'll be good to go. All right, so here, this is how I'm going to glue the top onto the base here. Now I flipped it over. I did not put a clear coat on the bottom yet because I'm gonna want to glue, and I want to make sure this glues to wood and not any clear coat that I put on. And I didn't put any clear coat on the inside of this yet. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take this, and then you're gonna attempt to center it the best you can all the way around. So I set these up to, I guess it's about a 1 1/8 inch, and I'm actually going to, not gonna do here, I'm actually gonna measure in here the best I can, and then bring that in, and just go right down and make sure it's even, and do the same thing on all these sides here. So this is all centered now. So I'm gonna take one of these, I'm just gonna do glue on the top, on the side, and then the bottom. And then you can just put a little bit in there. And then we're just going to, you just got to move it around so it gets a little tight, and then that one there is secured. And don't forget to always have a wipe rag with you. And then we're going to do 2 on each side, closer to the corners. This is what your tabletop, this is what it should look like. You have all that glued in there. Now we can just put it up And you can see how nice it looks. So there you have it. Your pallet tabletop is now complete. Just let this dry for about half an hour, and then you can go around and scrape the rest of the glue that you didn't get with the rag, and then you'll be good to go. So, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a healthy and wonderful day.